Hey everybody! So today is going to be video 2 in the Overcoming Dependency series. Last video we talked a lot about attachment styles and really exploring what attachment style we are and how that plays in. So typically people that fall in under the anxious attachment style are going to be people that have codependent traits, okay? So a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about, a lot of this process is going to be directed at anxious attached people, okay? So anxious attached people, codependent, is going to really kind of be used interchangeably in this series, just so people kind of have a sense. This is the journey that I'm on. So for me, it's actually, I've been finding it a little bit challenging to film or to bring myself to consciousness in this, is because I'm in it, right? It's very hard to be objective about a process when you're in it and you're processing yourself through it. So I'm trying my best to have that distinction between the teacher and the student of what I'm doing right now, because I want to be able to lead you guys. So I really am just going to almost be processing in this video. I'm just going to kind of let it happen. I've been making some notes and thinking about what I want to reflect on, but at the end of the day, the key for this is going to be to just be open about my process and allow myself to communicate through processing as I start to talk about it. So today is all about learning boundaries. Okay, so learning boundaries is really the first step in overcoming codependency, because we need to learn how to start to reclaim, right? Reclaim our awesomeness from the grips of codependency. That's what I called my blog. And that's really what it is. Reclamation is about setting up a new system that you can operate within that protects you from leaking your energy outward, right? And that's what we're doing as codependents. We're leaking our energy outward, and we're focusing all and everything about the other, and we're not focusing on self, okay? So how we do this is we do this by setting boundaries. We set up a new system that we can operate within that's going to teach us how to do that. So oftentimes people that are codependent struggle with boundaries because we don't have the discernment between boundaries and expectations, because most of the time people who are codependents grow up with feeling a sense of disconnection in their emotional support from their caregiver. So we never consistently received emotional support from our caregivers, so we can never really trust that we're going to get consistency from emotional support from our intimate lovers. So what we do is we hawk in and we make sure we're going to get our needs met, our emotional needs met, by becoming codependent, by placing expectation on the other to meet our needs. This is how we lose sense of self and we focus on our sense of other. So in this work, we really need to understand the difference between a boundary and the difference between an expectation, okay? So boundary is what we set in place by showing somebody how to treat us by how we treat ourselves, okay? I've said this many times before, but I'm going to say it again because it's so important. Expectation is how we tell someone to treat us when we're not necessarily treating ourselves that way, okay? So how can you expect somebody to love you and see your worth and treat you with respect when you don't do that for yourself, right? When we operate from that place of putting expectation on other to meet our needs, it's like having a bucket with a hole in it and you're constantly trying to fill it, right? You will have an insatiable appetite for somebody else's desire to meet your needs, to love you, if you're not loving yourself, because you're leaking the love that they're giving you. It's just always, it's not sticking. The only time it sticks is when you give it to yourself, right? This is fundamental in the process of overcoming codependency, because when we don't have the ability to love ourselves or see our own worth, we'll never be satiated by somebody else's love. We're always going to be craving it and craving it and craving it. And we want more, we want more, we want more. It's an addiction. Codependency is an addiction to somebody else needing us. right? To needing somebody else. It's an addiction to the relationship. So how do we start to reclaim ourselves from this addiction? The first thing is boundaries, okay? So what we need to do is we need to start to go within. We need to look at how we can start to meet these needs for ourselves, okay? So boundaries are going to be the cork that you're going to stick into the hole in your bucket and stop the water from leaking out, right? Stop the love from leaking out. So we're no longer going to be placing these crazy expectations on the other to meet the needs that we're not meeting for ourselves, okay? Fundamental, right? Boundaries, expectations. As a codependent, we need to learn how to discern when we're setting our boundaries and when we're setting expectations, okay? It's okay to have expectations of the relationship, but only if you're meeting those needs yourself. What does that become when you're meeting the needs yourself? It becomes a boundary. So boundaries really are how we start to get our needs met in a relationship, is by setting those boundaries and making sure that, okay, I want love from you, but I'm also giving love to myself. So I'm not looking for you to complete me. I'm looking for you to complement me, right? I'm looking to offer love to you because I want to offer love to you, not because I'm offering love to you because I want it reflected back to me. That's where it becomes problematic in a relationship, is when we start to look to the other and give them what we're just wanting reflected back to us, right? People pick up on that. Think about it if somebody were to give you a compliment, and the only reason they're giving you a compliment is because they want you to give them a compliment back, right? That's not selfless complimenting. That's selfish complimenting. And the same can happen with love, right? We give something outside of ourselves because we want it back, right? People pick up on that. That's a very selfish way to love, and that's a very possessive way to love. So we want to look at how we can start to shift that into selflessness, right? So one of the ways that we do that is we start to look at honoring what it is about ourselves that we are looking for outside of ourselves to have these needs met, okay? So fundamentally, people in the anxious attachment style struggle with abandonment, fear of abandonment, okay? And that usually comes from emotional abandonment, because we feel like there was inconsistency in our upbringing that we struggled with. We weren't quite sure if we were going to get our next fix of emotional support. So we developed this anxious, hypervigilant monitor in our brain mechanism that looks around, always perceiving ways that we are not going to get our needs met, okay? So it becomes pathological for us to focus on others. So we need to start to bring ourselves back to ourselves, okay? So that's what we're going to use boundaries for. We're going to use the boundaries to create healthy space and healthy separateness in our relationships and start to focus more on us, okay? So this is the work. This is the meat and potatoes, and this is really tough for people because, you know what, in that process, creating healthy separateness and creating space, you're going to feel disconnection. And this is something that anxious people really struggle with. They struggle with the separateness. So one of the key fundamentals to being okay with separateness is to be okay with yourself, to be okay with you time, to be okay with not having to be always monitoring and always being in the presence of the other. Okay? So I'm gonna tell you guys a little bit about my journey and how I'm embarking on this. This has just been like crazy. So in the last little bit, what I've done is I've pulled myself back from this relationship that I was moving into because I saw another pattern that I was playing out. I was heading into the same old shit that I've always been heading into. So I saw this, I'm like, shit, red flag. I'm like, okay, and instead of proceeding, out of fear or out of unconsciousness, I have so much consciousness right now that I'm like, no, I'm not going into this again because this is painful. I don't want to go into another painful relationship. So I pulled back. I've chosen to be single. This work can be done in the relationship. It can be done outside of the relationship. It really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because it's about going inward. It's going to make it a little harder if you're in a relationship because the pull's always there. The addiction is always there. It's sitting right there, right? So I chose to, I was at the early stages of a relationship, so I chose to pull myself back. And I realized that I need to learn how to have intimacy with space. Because what I've done my whole life is I'm such a hopeless romantic. I have this crazy vision of me meeting this perfect man and me being in this perfect relationship and things being just amazing, right? And what I'm doing is I'm putting so much expectation on these people that I meet and trying to shape them into who I want them to be so that they're safe for me. Okay? It's focusing on other to create safety for self. There is no safety when another is involved. 100% certainty safety is what I'm speaking of. The only person that can provide 100% certainty safety for yourself is you. Okay? This is the learning for me. So what I'm doing now is I'm learning how to chill the fuck out, for one, because I'm hopping into a relationship and I'm like, be this person for me. So intimacy with space for me right now means being able to go on a date and not be sizing them up to be my everything. Going on a date and being able just to have fun. Going on a date and being able to just let the person be who they are. I don't have to try and change them. It just feels so good. So anyways, one of the biggest things that came up for me when I first started doing this is I'm like, oh my God, what if somebody starts to really like me and then I break their heart and blah, 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 blah. And this whole caretaker shit started to come up inside of me. And I'm like, so I just released that. I'm like, why? It doesn't matter. Why am I addicted to managing other people's feelings and making sure everybody else feels safe but me, right? I'm the person that I need to start making feel safe. This was a crazy epiphany for me. So once I got to this place of having this realization, I'm like, okay, my goal for the next while is to just have fun, to just allow myself to go on a date and sit across from somebody that I see things in them that maybe I wouldn't want to marry, right? It doesn't have to be about that. It's just, for me, it's right now I'm just in a place where I'm like, okay, I want to practice intimacy and I am okay if we don't talk for a week, right? Whereas before that would be spinning me out of control. I'd be constantly perseverating and thinking about what are they doing and they don't love me and blah, 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 right? So how I'm doing this work is I'm focusing on myself. I'm making myself valuable. I'm focusing on making myself a reference point, right? It doesn't matter what the other is doing because I'm focusing on what I'm doing, right? So this has been a really big shift for me, and I'm really excited to be embarking on this because this is a skill that I'm lacking, and this is a skill that I need going forward. Because if I don't have the ability to make myself valuable, I focus on other. If I don't have the ability to make myself feel safe, I focus on other, and I try and manage them, and I try and control them, and I try and possess them into being safe, right? So I've been doing this work internally, going into this period in my life where I felt this sense of abandonment or this fear of abandonment. And really what it was my parents split when I was 8. And like I've told you guys before, that everybody, my sister, my mom, my dad, and me, we all dealt with it differently. And my parents, what ended up happening was when they were feeling stable, they were there to be able to provide me my emotional needs. But then when they weren't stable and they were going through their own emotional stuff, they weren't able to provide me my emotional needs. So I had a lot of inconsistency growing up in getting my needs met. So I became very fixated on how I could get my emotional needs met by the other because I wasn't able, or I wasn't taught how to do that for myself. Okay, this is going to be very, very common for a lot of people that fall into the anxious attachment style. So it's about looking at how you can start to meet those needs for yourself. And I've done a lot of inner child work on this area, because you know what, you got to go back to that wounded little boy that was yearning for connection, that was yearning for emotional support, that was yearning for validation, for reassurance that things are going to be okay, and I didn't receive that at a young age, right? So now I got to learn to provide that for myself, and then I can learn to provide that for myself in a relationship when I may not be getting my emotional needs met by the other, because that's not their job. It's not the other's job to meet your emotional needs. It's your job to meet your emotional needs, and it's the other's job to support you in the process of meeting your own needs, which can be confused. We can confuse that as you have to meet my emotional needs, when really their job is to support you in meeting your emotional needs. It feels very similar, but there is a distinction there, right? So you got to be able to make that discernment. Yeah, I think I hit all the points I wanted to hit. Anyway, this is a journey. This is a real freaking journey. But I'm making the most of it, and I'm having fun with it, and I'm going on dates, and I'm just enjoying people's company, and I'm not having to make somebody my everything. It feels so good. It feels like this crazy monkey's off my shoulder. It's like, go away. I'm just gonna learn to have fun and stand in my own awesomeness, and yeah, feels pretty good. So next video will come out. I'm just gonna do one a week, because honestly, this is too much for me to process. So I look forward to the next one with you guys. Take care. Bye.